I don't know if you know the all of them, but it's no secret that like a lot of the illegal drugs today were previously used in medicine, right? Doctors would practice with them. Like cocaine, heroin, I believe, right? Weed, marijuana.
Yeah.
But so what's the kind of history there with psychedelics? Was it ever taken seriously by the medical establishment until recently? Is there a reason why? Was it that it was illegal? Do you know any of that history? Just out of curiosity, because I think it's so
Yeah.
interesting. We always hear people say there's some medicinal purposes to them, yet I'm not sure like how long they've been known. Because it seems like other like more ancient or indigenous societies have been using these. So what happened here with us?
Right, right. No, it's a good question. I mean, it depends on which one. If you're talking about peyote or ayahuasca, there's like long, long traditions. And there's long traditions of people taking mushrooms and using them and all. There's definitely traditions where people thought it was good or it was spiritual. And then you have like 1950s, 1960s people saying, like Timothy Leary and other people going, this is like really exciting. We're going to transform ourselves. We're going to do exactly what people are saying today. But then the government starts researching it, right? And so what they do is they put people in these hospitals and they give them psychedelics and they're being scientists, and so it's like an ugly awful room with bright lights and like a bunch of people peering in at them. Uh, and they have all these awful experiences, right? Like they basically show again and again that psychedelics are horrible for people because when you do that, you have an awful experience. Um, then in the last 20 years, there's been people who started again, and what they figured out was this really key thing, which Timothy Leary knew, but the other researchers didn't, which is that set and setting maybe the
Mm.
most important thing in a psychedelic experience, right? It's like how your mind goes into it, what state you are, and what it's like around you. So if you, and that's partly a justification for why people do psychedelics and all these like, beautiful flowing places with pretty music and all that kind of stuff, because it may be that psychedelics enhance what's going on. And that's a lot of what their process is. So if you are, um, in a room where people are loving each other and you loosen your mind to that, it's the same thing with the prayer, right? Then you become more loving, and so that psychedelics have some of their own qualities, and our psychedelics are very different from each other. Each one has differences, but sort of one of the main stories that people have learned is that the setting, and then the integration afterwards are absolutely crucial to making an experience that's not horrible. And sometimes it's horrible, and the ones that the government found in the 50s were like, they were much more horrible because they were putting people in awful settings.
Yeah, I remember they had one of them, Operation Midnight Climax. They would have like a John in a room, and then the sex worker would go to the bathroom, and they would spray psychedelics from the ceiling to kind of monitor the guy. They had that one, and then there was the story of Frank Olson. Remember, they gave him LSD at a party. I think he was working for the CIA. He was definitely working for the government, and he had no clue he had been dosed, and he had like serious psychological issues afterward. And then, depending on who you ask, either jumped out of a window or was thrown out of a window afterward. But yeah, so just to give you some examples, right, the studies you're talking about that probably weren't the best lab studies to test the medicinal effects of psychedelics.
Yeah, and it doesn't take into account, like, if first of all, Frank Olson, how was his brain beforehand? Second of all, put him in an anxious situation and have weird things happen that he's not expecting. That's a perfect like recipe for a really bad trip. And potentially long-term damage. I mean, those are real things that happen to people's brains. And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I don't know, like it used to be that people thought that speaking in tongues was uh, pathological, right? There's all these studies in the 1920s, 1950s where people are like, people who speak in tongues are you're going to go crazy, or you're going to become sort of antisocial. Um, and then the studies in the 80s and 90s seem to show that that was not true. But I wonder if there's some relationship there, because there is a loosening, so it could be something that could hurt you if you are in the wrong context, right? It's a power, and it's a power that can be used in multiple ways.